Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I'm so fucking tired of her taking from me and acting like it's what I was born for? So I technically was born for her to take from. I'm a savior sibling, and that was the only reason my parents had a second child. They were one and done with my sister, but when she was 2 she got sick, and so they had me to save her. Growing up, I felt every bit of the lack of interest my parents had in me. I knew before I hit middle school that my parents had me for one reason only. Yet I saw them adore and spoil my sister and make sure she had everything. I grew up watching her grow up with devoted parents while I had none. Because of the way we were raised, my sister and I were never close. She was used to getting what she wanted and being spoiled. I was forgotten until she needed something like blood. If I ever happened to have something she wanted, you bet my parents let her have it, and they had no time for me complaining about it. They had no time for me, period. I'm sure on some level they were grateful that I had fulfilled my purpose. But nobody will ever convince me that they love me. Now we're both in our 20s and my sister has tried to have a relationship. But it's still a lot of her wanting her way and for me to pay for her, but she gets to choose where we go and what we do. I'm expected to give her food off my plate. She ignores when I bring up how our childhood wasn't perfect like she talks about. She brings up how I wasn't present for stuff, and in the same sentence we'll talk about it being the best day. Eventually, I stopped saying yes, or if I did, I refused to pay and refused to go along with what she wanted, and we saw each other far less. I also heard from her far less. Which to me said she didn't really want a sister, she just wanted the person she was used to getting whatever from. A couple of weeks ago she showed up at my house, where I live with friends and our partners, and she told me she needed a place to stay and attempted to invite herself in. She looked rough, so I told her she could get some food and something to drink, but she needed to stay someplace else. I suggested she call our parents. She didn't want to go anywhere else and was trying to befriend my boyfriend and the other partners, since she knew my friends didn't like her. I made it very clear and insisted she figure something else out. She told me I should be more willing to help her out, and why do I never want to do anything for her? I snapped at her saying that, and I told her I am so tired of her taking from me and acting like it's what I was born to do. I told her our parents might have had me for that reason, but I'm more than that, and I never had a say in any of that, and if she wants to talk about things not being fair, then she should think more on that. She had a very explosive reaction and left. She said afterward I suck for blaming her for our parents' actions. It just frustrated me because she doesn't acknowledge her own actions in that. Am I the a-hole?
Not the a-hole, not even a little bit. If you haven't already, you might want to consider some personal therapy. What your parents did to you, the way they treat you, it is not normal. I bet you have a lot more trauma you haven't begun to process yet. I am so sorry you lived that life. That is twisted. Build your own family. I am the black sheep. I made my own group of friends who over time are now my brothers and sisters. You can do the same.
I'm looking for a therapist right now, but I'm such a niche market that finding a therapist with the right experience is hard. It's been 3 years of speaking to different therapists, but they either admit they wouldn't feel capable of handling an actual savior sibling's issues, or they don't tell me, and it becomes clear they do not possess the ability to help me heal, and some say things that make me feel even more isolated, though not intentionally.
She said afterward I suck for blaming her for our parents' actions. It just frustrated me because she doesn't acknowledge her own actions in that. You're exactly right. She's refusing to accept blame for how selfish she's always acted. That's on her. Forgiveness starts with an apology, and she owes you a big one. Not the a-hole to keep her out of your home, which is your safe space.
Yeah, she definitely leaned into her parents' behavior and never seemed to even consider that what they did was wrong, and it's on her to make amends for her part in that.
Not the a-hole. I'm genuinely sorry that your parents treated you like spare parts and that they taught your sister to do the same. I would go no contact with all of them. I doubt their behavior will ever change, and you don't owe any of them anything.
Not the a-hole. You weren't blaming her for your parents' actions, you were blaming her for her actions. She's spoiled and used to getting her way. The golden child can go stay with her parents.
Am I the a-hole for not giving my friends a ride if they didn't fasten their seatbelts? Last night, I, 18 male, was getting off work at 11:30 p.m. My 2 other friends, both 18 male, were also leaving as well and asked me if they could get a ride. I said sure. They all live within 112 miles from our workplace, a 3 to 5 minute drive, a 15 to 20 minute walk, and they both live in separate houses at different ends of town. It's a pretty chilly night at about 40 degrees and only a few cars are out and about. We all packed into my light blue 2004 Buick LeSabre. I waited to hear all of their seatbelts click, which never came. I asked if they could fasten their seatbelts and they looked at each other with confused glances. After a solid minute, one of them broke the silence and asked, "Wait, you're serious?" And which I said, "Yeah." They asked why and I said the obvious reasons, safety and I don't want no tickets if we happen to get pulled over. One chimed in correcting me saying, "The driver doesn't get a ticket, the passenger does." I sat there for a second and said, "If you don't fasten your seatbelts, I'm not taking you guys anywhere." They both let out a bunch of scoffs and exited the car. I said, "Suit yourself," and drove off, leaving them in chilly weather, on a dark night, with a 20-minute walk home. Am I the a-hole for not giving my friends a ride if they didn't fasten their seatbelts?
They need to understand that if there is ever a crash, and they aren't seat belted in, their bodies become instant 100+ pound projectiles flying around the inside of the vehicle. That's not something I want coming my way.
Wow, I honestly never thought of that. If this happens again, I'll bring this point up. Thanks.
Not the a-hole. It's a seatbelt. Just put it on. I have a guy I work with who is a bit of a conspiracy theory nut job and he hates seatbelts. Something about the government controlling us through fear. Our trucks at work beep at you if you aren't wearing it. He buckles the seatbelt and then sits on top of the seatbelt and he drapes a black strip of cloth over his shoulder to look like a belt.
Jesus. At that point it's easier to just put it on. People just love finding the most difficult way to do stuff, don't they? The only conspiracy going on here is how he's still got a license.
Good on you, OP. Not the a-hole. Don't let anyone pressure you into a potentially dangerous situation. Car accidents can come out of nowhere. I've been hit 2XS, didn't see them coming either time, and if I hadn't been wearing a seatbelt, it would have been a lot worse than it was. My brother was in a car accident where he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He got ejected from the car and watched it flip over him in the air. He was extremely lucky not to be killed. It's not worth the risk.
Not the a-hole, your car, your rules. As friends, they should respect your wishes in your vehicle.
Not the a-hole, I'm still trying to compute how walking was better than putting on the seatbelt. Like, why?
Some people never grow past the stage when they're 4 years old and say no to everything.
Am I the a-hole for not going to my stepdaughter's birthday because they disinvited my son? My fiancé, male 33, and I, female 34, have been together for 5 going on 6 years. I was there for him for his drug addiction and raised his daughter while he was in jail and homeless and in rehab. I have a son from a previous relationship, 15 male, and we have a son together, 2 male. This last weekend was his daughter's 13th birthday, and the day before he messaged me to say that his daughter doesn't want my son at her birthday because her boyfriend is coming. My son and her boyfriend get along very well, and she feels like she will be left out. So, I messaged my fiancé and said I would stop by and give her her gift, but I'm not staying as my son was excited about seeing his sister on her birthday and he was sad that he wasn't invited anymore. My fiancé then got angry that I was making a huge deal out of it, saying she's allowed to have whoever she wants at her birthday, which I agree she has every right, just as I have every right to show up because my son was upset about being uninvited. He knows I will always have his back. His mom called me to find out what was happening, and I told her what he had said. She told me that his daughter never said that she didn't want her brother there and that we must come, but I said no because my son was upset. I did not tell my son that my fiancé was the person who uninvited him, but he figured it out and asked me if it was my fiancé, not his sister, who didn't want him around. I ended up taking my son to the movies and the arcade, but when he saw his sister at the mall, he decided he didn't want to stay any longer and we left. Am I the a-hole for being upset about this whole situation?
Not the a-hole. Why did your fiancé not want your son at the party? Why did your fiancé lie and blame his daughter for disinviting him? Why did your fiancé want to exclude your son and get mad when you had his back? These are questions that I would need my fiancé to answer to my face. Then I would seriously consider if I wanted a relationship with a man like that. From reading the first paragraph alone, it sounds like you are completely done with this man to begin with, and that this episode was your wit's end. It is easier to end an engagement than it is to end a marriage. I am proud that you had your son's back. It seems like your fiancé has grown up to do.
This is definitely a fiancé problem.
Well, yeah, within a 6-year time period he was on drugs, in jail, homeless, and she still decided to have a baby with him and stay with him. This is a fiancé and OP problem that she's wrapped her son in by not picking a better partner.
If the fiancé is already lying to you, I suggest you seriously rethink marrying him. I'll give you another reason. He has no respect for your son, which is another red flag.
She helped raise his kid while he was homeless and in rehab, and he doesn't respect her son. Damn the audacity of this man, ruined a perfectly good relationship between the kids.
Not the a-hole for standing up for your son, but why would you marry someone who doesn't seem to want him around? Going through with the marriage without sorting this out first would make you the A, and you could lose your son in the process.
This is the big question. Is OP sure that idiot fiancé isn't using again? Because stepson and daughter's boyfriend get along too well, so I need to keep stepson away, is an idiotic train of thought. Not the a-hole.
Granted, you rightfully defended your son during the party. But, once you learned that your fiancé was the sole perpetrator, you were about to let him off the hook altogether and let his daughter continue to get thrown under the bus. That guy is bad news. For whatever reasons, he hurt your son, and you know it but you don't want to believe it. Unpopular take here, but you are the a-hole. You shouldn't be upset about the situation. You need to be squarely upset at your fiancé for causing all of this.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories.